Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Purdue hits the road this week in search of its first Big Ten win since 2023 as it takes on the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. We'll put a final wrap on the loss to Illinois, look ahead to Minnesota, talk about an interesting slate of Big Ten football this weekend here on the show today, some memories, games between the Boilers and Gophers. Got a good episode here for you. If you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Come join the conversation there. Football, basketball, we're talking about it all. Follow there on Twitter. Send questions at Boilers Beyond on Twitter. BoilersandBeyondPod@gmail.com. Always taking questions for the show. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. We'll be here every week through the end of basketball season and beyond. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. You know, from the Illinois game, rewatching it, I don't have that many different thoughts. What I saw in real time was about right. Purdue had a better success rate than Illinois when you look at some of the advanced stats after the game, and it makes some sense. Purdue was able to stop the run pretty well. Illinois ran for less than 3 yards a carry. Purdue had 8 tackles for loss. And Purdue had a good day on offense. Purdue moved the ball really nicely. Purdue put pressure on Illinois' defense, but Illinois had 8 plays combined for 300 yards in this game. The 2 fumbles for Purdue were killer. When you combine those 2 factors, just the amount of explosives that Purdue allowed, 5 pass plays for Luke Altmaier going for 39 or more yards, Purdue fumbling twice. It was too much for Purdue to overcome. The secondary was a big problem. Look at what happened without Tony Grimes. That's one corner. Granted, he's your best corner. He's the best guy you have at that position. Is he perfect? No. He struggled at Notre Dame. He had a rough day. And he struggled at times against USC too. Those are pretty good receivers that USC has, but he struggled. Without him, it was a mess. Communication, breakdowns, a big problem. And it shows you how thin the margin for error is with this group. It's a group that plays hard. It's a group that competes. I know Ryan Walters, goodness gracious. I know Barry Odom doesn't want to hear it, but it's a group that plays hard. They're competing. They're fighting through the final whistle. It just isn't quite there from a talent perspective to overcome mistakes and to overcome any extra limitations that are put upon it. I did think Purdue's offensive line battled pretty well. Illinois didn't disrupt Purdue at the point of attack a whole lot. That was with Jalen St. John going down. He got carted off in the second quarter, I believe. Hank Purvis came in, did well in his place. The Purdue offensive line had an all right day. If you want a reason to believe in Ohio State to win huge this week against Illinois, there you go. Because if they weren't impacting Purdue's offensive line, doubt they're going to do a whole lot to Ohio State's offensive line. But you know, it was a game that just kind of was what it was. Purdue did some good things. It didn't do enough of them to overcome some of the limitations that really got exposed. And now as Purdue heads to Minnesota's about a 10-point favorite. 9, 9.5, 10.5. You look around different sports books, you'll see a slightly different number, but it's right around there. And to me, that feels about right. Minnesota comes in 3-2. It hasn't been remarkably impressive so far. It won against Buffalo on the opening Thursday night. It bombed Northwestern State. I think that was 59-0 at halftime. It lost at Cal, a game that was played at 10:30 Eastern time, a game that Cal, the true freshman quarterback out there, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. He's very good, and he looked great against Minnesota. He's going to have quite the market in the portal here in a month or two. Minnesota lost that game, came back, took care of business, beat Rutgers by 3, and then last week just got eviscerated at Ohio State 42-3. But a lot of teams are going to do that against Ohio State. Minnesota's not of that ilk. It just isn't. There's still a lot of unknown with the Golden Gophers because it's not a great rushing team. You look at how Minnesota likes to play under PJ Fleck. I can go back to the days of Muhammad Ibrahim getting 25, 30 carries a game. I'm just force-feeding him the football. You look at some of what they've done with Darius Taylor. It is a run-heavy, ball control type of offense. It is very Big Ten West-esque as far as it goes. PJ Fleck was very much leaning into the style of football that the Big Ten West played with Wisconsin, with Iowa, with Illinois a little bit under Bielema, with Northwestern under Fitz. All of that kind of lined up under one identity. And Jeff Brom and, to a lesser degree, Nebraska were kind of the outliers there. Less than 4 yards per carry through 5 games for Minnesota. Darius Taylor's been there a while. This is his 3rd year. It feels like he's been there longer, but he's been Minnesota's leading rusher each of the last 2 seasons. He missed the Rutgers game. I believe he missed the Cal game, and he was limited. He was on a snap count last week at Ohio State. He's supposed to be healthy now. He's supposed to be good to go. Is he 100%? Is he on a snap count? Or is he full go? Because that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference. The running game behind him has been okay, but it hasn't been particularly special to this point. And Minnesota needs it to be above average. It needs the rushing game to be a strength for it. It's not a particularly explosive run game. It's ground and pound. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Old school. Hard-nosed. That's what Minnesota wants its ground game to be. The passing game's been all right this year. Drake Lindsey's a redshirt freshman. He very traditional path here. He came there out of high school. He redshirted last year in his first year. Now he's a redshirt freshman starting. You don't see that every day anymore. Interesting connection to Barry Odom for Lindsey. He is from Arkansas, and he was high school teammates with Barry's son Garrett Odom when Barry was the defensive coordinator at Arkansas. So there's a connection there. Good player though. Good player, hitting 64% of his passes, 7-2 touchdown interception ratio, a little over 200 yards per game. He's been pretty solid. And you factor in that last week he had under 100 yards against Ohio State, it looks a little bit better. The passing game has been, so far, limited sample size, one of the better Minnesota passing games under PJ Fleck. They had the really good passing game back in 2019 with Tanner Morgan. It never quite reached those heights again with him. This is a pretty solid Minnesota passing game. You'll recognize his top receiver, Javon Tracy. He's the younger brother of Tyrone Tracy, Purdue running back, now with the New York Giants. Javon transferred in from Miami, Ohio. He leads them in receiving yards at this point. Very, very spread out passing numbers, though. I think it was 7 receivers have between 8 and 19 receptions on the year for Minnesota. Very balanced attack. It's not like Purdue where you've got Michael Jackson more than double the number 2 guy on the team in terms of reception count. Again, not a super explosive group. It's pretty, it's pretty, I don't know what the right word to use is. It's nothing special. It's not a big play group. It is a move the ball down the field position, take advantage of mistakes type of team. It's Big Ten West, man. It's Big Ten West, and it's what PJ Fleck wants to do. Now, Minnesota bottled up the run really well in non-conference play. When you look at some of the numbers, Minnesota's 10th in the FBS against the run right now. That's some skewed data because the 3 non-conference teams Minnesota played ran the ball horrendously. Rutgers and Ohio State both had more success on the ground, both over 4 yards per carry. Still a good run defense. Again, the physicality, the linebacker play, it's solid there. It's still what Minnesota kind of historically has been under Fleck. But it is vulnerable through the air. You saw JKS at Cal really air it out on him. Callie McManus at Rutgers had a nice day. He's had a nice little resurgence. Purdue will see him in a couple weeks. And Julian Sayin with those receivers had a field day. And Minnesota tried to play a lot of man coverage. We'll see if Minnesota tries to do that again this week. Purdue doesn't have the receivers that Ohio State does. If you're going to man those guys, good luck to you. It didn't go well for them. This is about what you'd expect from Minnesota, just to be frank here. It's a solid team. It's unspectacular. Minnesota's not going to beat itself. It is all of the classic cliches you use about Iowa, about what Wisconsin used to be, about the PJ Fleck teams, about Brett Bielema's teams. It just kind of is what it is there. It's a night game in Minneapolis. It's homecoming. That's not like going into the Horseshoe or Penn State at night. It just isn't. There are plenty of available tickets from what I saw. But, Minnesota fans will be excited. What you've seen so far is likely to stay the same for Purdue. Going on the road, night game, Purdue has to play really well to win. You can't have turnovers. You look at last week, Ryan Brown turns in a clean slate, just his second one in 5 games throwing the ball, no interceptions for him last week. But you have 2 fumbles from Michael Jackson that put you in a really poor spot. That can't happen. When you're the underdog, you have to win the turnover battle. And if you're not forcing them the way Purdue is not forcing them, then you certainly cannot commit them. Mental errors can't happen. No jumping off sides on 4th and 2. No blindside blocks when you're trailing the play. Can't happen. Purdue's looking for its first Power 4 win since Indiana in 2023. That was the bucket game that closed the year. Nice comeback by Purdue. It's looking for its first road win since Virginia Tech earlier that year in 2023. The game that had a incredibly long rain delay. 6 hours maybe? It was really something. And then Purdue's looking for its first Big Ten road win since Indiana in 2022, when Aiden O'Connell, Charlie Jones led Purdue to a second-half comeback, beat Indiana to win the Big Ten West that year. Purdue's just 1-6 in Huntington Bank Stadium, but it won the last time it played there. Get to that here in a moment. Look, this is the type of program that Purdue is striving to become under Barry Odom. Minnesota is solid, man. It is unspectacular. It isn't flashy. It just isn't. But Minnesota's made a bowl game in 6 of the last 7 years. This is Fleck's 9th year. His first season, 2017, they missed a bowl. He didn't exactly inherit a great situation there. 2020, the COVID year, they did not play in a bowl game. No idea. Maybe they made a bowl and the bowl game was canceled. I don't remember. Weird year. Other than those 2 years, Fleck has made a bowl game in every year, and bizarrely enough, he's won that bowl game in every year. It is not a program that's competing at the top of the Big Ten. It's not one that's really competing for the cream of the crop bowl games, but it's a program that stacks wins. It puts together nice seasons. It doesn't recruit crazy high-level talent. You've had a few players, but all in all, this is what Purdue wants Barry Odom's tenure to look like. It is kind of what PJ Fleck has done. Probably can go without the antics. Probably don't need the sprint from end of the field to end of the field between quarters. But that type of success, that type of consistency, that's what Purdue wants. Purdue should have Tony Grimes back this week. That's a really big deal. We saw what happened without him. It was rough. Purdue will be better for having him on the field. It sounded like he practiced on Monday, That's really the only injury update that Purdue provides until the availability report is released 2 hours before kickoff, so we'll know then. But he should be all good. Purdue's got to limit explosive plays through the air. You've got to make Minnesota put together long drives to beat you. Last week, Jalen St. John got carted off. Went through practice on Monday in a limited fashion. Again, I thought Hank Purvis did a pretty good job. You didn't really notice him, as Josh Henson said, and that's a good thing. You want all hands on deck, though, because if you were to lose Purvis or something, then you're going further down, and you can't have that. It's a thin offensive line already. But as a whole, we're 5 games into the season. Purdue's in pretty good shape health-wise. It lost Jalil Hall, the freshman wide receiver, for the year in the opener against Ball State. TJ Lindsey's a big loss. He was a big loss on the interior of the defensive line. He's a future pro guy, I think. Burns out. Purdue expects him back at some point. Past that, Purdue's in pretty good shape here. We've seen a lot of years where Purdue is in much worse shape after 5 games than it is right now. The home road splits in this series are really something else. Minnesota leads 33-14-3 in Minneapolis. Purdue leads 21-8 in West Lafayette. I need to figure out why there's such a split there. That's strange. I know the Big Ten used to do things differently. That's strange. But this one's in Minneapolis, where it's been all Gophers over time. But Purdue has a 2-game win streak in the series. 2023, a 49-point explosion for the Purdue offense. Purdue beats Minnesota and Ross-Ade. Hudson Card had a nice day. I remember that much. What a strange stretch of games to end that year. Purdue looked good against Minnesota. Ryan Brown and Bennett Meredith played at Northwestern, and then Purdue beat Indiana, and you kind of felt decent about where Purdue was. And then 2024 was a disaster. 2022, though, these two teams last meeting up in Minneapolis, Minnesota was ranked 22nd in the country, I believe. 2 picks for Cam Allen. Aiden O'Connell came back from his injury. This was an interesting game because Purdue came in 2-2, having just barely squeaked by Florida Atlantic. Purdue probably should have lost that game. And then Purdue wins this. Devin Mockabee has a long run to seal the deal. Purdue rips off a few more wins, then a few losses, then a few more wins, and it makes it all the way to the Big Ten title game. Strange year, man. Really strange year. We'll have to talk about that year in more detail at some point because that was one heck of a roller coaster. Maybe have someone on the show that was a part of it. But who could forget pass interference on Payne Durham up there in 2020? That season was a mess. Everything around it was a mess. But once that call got made and Purdue lost that game, those next 2 games were bad. Bad losses to Nebraska and Rutgers at home. And it just spiraled out of control. That was it for that year. Bob Diaco got canned. What a time. Jawan Bentley, pick 6 after the rain delay to seal the deal in 2017. That was a really big win for Jeff Brom in that year 1. There was a blown game up there in one of the Darrell Hazel years I seem to remember. But the memory that sticks with me the most, and I talked about it over the summer, was that 2010 game when Purdue had the Rose Bowl throwbacks on, commemorating the 10-year anniversary of the Rose Bowl team. It was not a very good Purdue team, but as I recall, it was an even worse Minnesota team because Purdue rolled comfortably in that one, and it was the furthest thing from Purdue fans' minds on a beautiful October day because word started going around the stands that Robbie Hummel had retorn his ACL in preseason practice that morning, and you could just feel the energy come out of that stadium. Purdue was a preseason top 5 basketball team going into the senior year for Juwan Johnson, Etuan Moore, and Robbie Hummel. And that game really became the last thing that Purdue fans were concerned about, even though it was a picturesque October day in West Lafayette. But interesting, if you go back further, The Miracle at the Metrodome, I am too young to have witnessed it. If you can find it on YouTube, it's one of the craziest endings to regulation you'll ever see. There were some, the one back in the 90s under Coletto and Purdue gave up 1 million points. There are some good ones in this series. There are some really good ones in this series. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com. Huge week in the Big Ten this week. Here's what I know. At least I think I know at this point. Ohio State and Oregon are legitimate national title contenders. I am not sure if anyone else in the Big Ten is capable of winning or competing for the conference title. Indiana at Oregon on Saturday, huge game. How real is Indiana as a contender at the top? Last season, and I generally don't like talking about Indiana on this podcast because I don't want to come across as just a complete blowhard homer here. But last season, Indiana really struggled against the cream of the crop. It blew out the teams that weren't to that level, and it couldn't do much against the teams that were of that ilk. Oregon is of that ilk this year. I'm almost positive. Is Indiana capable of winning a game like this? It's about an 8-point underdog. Big one there. I'm fascinated to see what Indiana does. And can Oregon just cruise past Indiana? It's a home game for Oregon. Think what you want about travel, but it's a travel situation for Indiana. If Oregon can cruise past Indiana, I think you feel really good about the Ducks. Ohio State at Illinois. Ohio State looks phenomenal so far. Has not missed a beat, even though it lost so much from that national title team last year. Ohio State hasn't missed a beat. Wild stat. Ohio State opponents have made the red zone 8 times. They have not scored a touchdown yet this year. Only 5 points per game for opponents against Ohio State so far. It's an elite receiving core. Julian Sayin looks really good at quarterback so far. It's a good team, man. Ryan Day's built something really, really strong there. Can Illinois compete in this type of a game? You saw what happened when Illinois went to Indiana. Illinois was missing a lot in the secondary, but it wasn't a 53-point difference based off of a couple guys in the secondary. Illinois got ran off the field there. Now it's at home. It's a big noon kickoff. It should be a really good atmosphere there in Champaign. Can it compete against Ohio State? Can it hang in there within the 14-point spread? And then you have Michigan at USC in what is essentially an elimination game. An elimination game of Big Ten contention and an elimination game of college football playoff contention. Because these teams both have one loss. Michigan lost at Oklahoma. USC lost at Illinois. USC still has Notre Dame, and Michigan still has Ohio State. Both of those are going to project as losses. Now, we've seen what Michigan has done against Ohio State the last 4 years. Ohio State still has to beat Michigan, but Ohio State's going to be a sizable favorite in that game. I think both these teams could get in with 2 losses. I don't know that they could with 3. Loser here is in a really, really tricky spot. The winner has a great advantage. Go look at Michigan's schedule the rest of the way. Whew, it's light. It's really light between this and Ohio State. If the Wolverines can go out west and win this type of game, they're in really good shape. It's a really top-heavy conference right now. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum. You only have a few teams that are really capable of winning it. It's kind of like the ACC. I think the SEC and Big 12 are similar to where there's real parity towards the top, where there are a lot of teams that are capable of winning it. Texas Tech might be making that a difference this year. Whereas the Big 10 is kind of like the ACC, where the gap between the top, the teams that really want to win at a high level, and the bottom is really big. How many teams in the Big 10 can realistically make the college football playoff? 5? Maybe 6? You look down at the SEC, I mean, it's 7, 8, 9 teams realistically have a shot. So it's a little different. But Ohio State and Oregon are also, maybe the 2 best teams in the country right now. I'm interested to see this. If you look right now at DraftKings, as of Tuesday, the top 2 teams to win the national title odds were Ohio State and Oregon. After that, you had 7 SEC teams before you get to Penn State as the third most likely Big Ten team to win the national title based on odds. So it's a fascinating dynamic. I think we're going to find out this weekend if Ohio State and Oregon really are that much ahead of everyone else. For the record, I think they are. In my against the spread pick'em pools, I will be taking both of those favorites to cover, but we'll see what actually happens there. It's going to be a really big week of Big Ten football. Nebraska, Maryland is interesting as well. Michigan State would be it'd be in its best interest not to lose to UCLA, and Penn State needs to show a pulse against Northwestern. Hey, 2 weeks till Purdue, Kentucky, the exhibition game for basketball. I released 1 basketball episode, and it's my most listened to episode since the end of the basketball season. I know folks are ready for it. Going into that, we'll preview the game in pretty good depth, and once we get to that, we'll really be talking a lot of basketball here. We're not abandoning football coverage by any means. Just going to have longer episodes. We got more to talk about. That month of November is a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll have a basketball preview episode here coming up. Going to work on getting a guest on to help talk about the season. Stay tuned for that, but it's coming, guys. It's coming. By the time you're listening to this, Purdue's going to be sold out of tickets for the season for the 5th straight year. Purdue will have sold out every game since COVID. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Not many teams have that problem, and it's a good problem for Purdue to have. But that's all I've got for today. I'll be back here Sunday to break down Purdue and Minnesota. Whatever happens up there in Gopher land, we'll dive into it there on Sunday. Until then, follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Send me your Purdue football questions. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss that post-game episode. Until then, guys, enjoy the game. Safe travels to anyone headed up to Minneapolis. Take care.